welcome back to the channel. Another retro video, just a midweek video for you. This time it's the K-Aid, the KK11 radio. Quite a nice looking radio even today. Now, we reviewed this over 10 years ago, and I think at the time this was trying to copy the very popular TECSUN radio that was out, and I think they did a fair job with the design of the radio. Performance wise, it just wasn't as sensitive as the TECSUN radio, and I remember that the tuning on these radios very coarse, you had to be very precise with the tuning dial. I gave it, I think, a fair review back in the day. If I was to review this today and compare it to, say, these to the XH Data, the 328, this DSP radio, this would run rings around this radio. Radio has moved on so much more. This is so much more selective, and even though it's DSP tuning, the sensitivity much better than this radio. But it was over 10 years ago. I think it's an interesting little radio. Anyway, be kind to me because this was a very early video of mine. But yeah, here comes the review, the old review of this little K-Aid radio. Thank you for watching.
Hello and welcome back to the How Low Can We Go radio series, and welcome to Radio 2. This is a K-Aid KK11. This is an 11 band high sensitivity receiver according to the box. Now, for those of you following along at home, you kind of may notice that this radio looks sort of familiar because it's pretty much a rip-off of the TECSUN radio which we looked at in the last video. In fact, when you put the R912 side by side, they're very similar. I think they have just completely ripped off the design. However, this K-Aid came in at just under £6 UK. It's probably around about the $8.50 mark. So it's about half the price of the TECSUN. There are one or two subtle differences. The K-Aid KK11 on the FM band tunes all the way down to about 75 MHz. Medium wave bands are roughly about the same, but on the shortwave band, the TECSUN, which goes down to about 3.25 MHz, beats the K-Aid, which only goes down to about 4.5. But the controls, are pretty much about the same around the actual radio, and it doesn't actually feel too bad. And it's even got this little kickstand here in the back, which I think is a great feature for these radios. However, if you look at the antenna, which I must admit does feel quite inferior to the TECSUN, you'll notice that it doesn't swivel. So that really kind of makes that kickstand pretty irrelevant, because if you can't actually twist the antenna around, you can't really tune in properly to your stations. And I can show you it here on the TECSUN. As you can see, it's a much more substantial stainless steel antenna, and it twists all the way around 360 degrees. So unfortunately, straight away, that puts the radio at a little bit of a disadvantage. But hey, it is half the price. Moving on to the other controls and inputs on the radio, once again, they've actually pretty much copied the TECSUN all the way. If we go round to where the volume control, you've got like a little volume wheel, a 3.5-inch headphone jack, and then a little power jack just below it. That's exactly the same. But as I said, overall, just the feel of the radio, it doesn't feel too cheap actually. I mean, the switch is quite positive, a little bit plasticky, a little bit sort of clicky, but in the hand, yeah, it does feel like a cheap radio, but not as cheap as you would imagine. I mean, bearing in mind this is only about sort of £6, and it says it's actually a highly sensitive multi-band receiver, so we'll probably find that out in a minute. Opening the battery compartment there, yeah, you've got the little ribbon there again to help you get the batteries out. Hasn't got the little sponge there just to sort of squeeze the batteries in, but there you go. A little bit stiff to sort of get back, yeah, a little bit sort of plasticky, but well, I can't really complain about the construction though, to be honest. I mean, I think for the money, I think it's quite good. So it's obviously trying to be a TECSUN. Well, it walks the walk, but now shall we see if it talks the talk. So we'll go straight into the FM band and have a little tune around.
for wanting to get that information.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because they'd fallen out, or even a plot by the British Secret Services, Andrei Lugovoy about the murder.
70 witnesses
Predicted.
This could be a very long inquiry, couldn't it? So won't you close the door? Stay.
Road in Watford around Upton Road and on the rails there.
So as you can see here, once you get below the 88 MHz side on the tuning scale, it drops all the way down to 76 MHz, but it's completely useless here in the UK. I mean, there's nothing there. Maybe that's relevant in China. But other than that, overall I think it did quite well on FM. I mean, speaker sounded okay, it was relatively clear and quite sensitive, so not too bad at all on FM. But let's now have a tune around on the medium wave band.
Separatists. Moscow has denied the allegation. Russian President Vladimir Putin making social stability his government's top priority.
Cloudier this afternoon with a little rain later tonight. Those are the headlines. The next bulletin is at 2. This isn't it,
saying what a huge advantage it will be for Thomas Burditch to have that inside information. I mean, I think you have to take it a little bit with a pinch of balance.
yes, and he...
But the fact that two men who were extremely good friends and were working very closely together are now pitted in opposing sides.
Sing on.
Corners with a grand slam final.
With a free recruitment service and the possibility of a £1,500 grant, there's never been a better time to hire an apprentice.
That's not a problem.
I think it handled that quite well. It didn't overload too badly. I think overall it did quite well on medium wave. So let's now move on to shortwave, where it gets a little tougher.
Builder on his balcony had a sexual motive for the crime last year. Waitrose says it expects to create 2,000 jobs by expanding its existing supermarket and opening new ones. Planning to open 14 new shops in the spring. The ban on non-emergency vehicles using roads in New York City has been lifted. Stephen Combs, explosive curiosity much of the northeast of the United States. As you've just been hearing, Andy Murray between Thomas Burditch and the semi-finals of the Australian...
So what you were hearing there wasn't actually shortwave radio stations. That was just bleed over from medium wave. It was actually pretty bad. It quietens down in the mid bands, but when we get to the higher bands, it's actually quite terrible. So quite clearly we're not really picking up anything at all. So we need to take another approach. So I think we need to get the TECSUN back and actually tune that into a shortwave station and then see how we get on with this CADE.
Accidental
crashes and things into crowded areas. So I think you're right. Yeah, to just tell people not to use it in a crowded area, because if you think about it, we've had radio-controlled helicopters and radio-controlled planes for years, and I think I've never in my...
So that's a shortwave station on the TECSUN, it's probably Radio China. And now I'm going to tune the CAID into the same actual frequency and see what happens.
What's the next story today? BBC News reports the World Health Organization, WHO, has set out plans for reform, admitting that it was too slow to respond to the deadly Ebola outbreak in West Africa. At an emergency session in Geneva,
and here's the key bit. Listen tomorrow morning at 8, 9 and 10 a.m. It could be your moment.
Absolutely.
So as you can hear, I can't find that shortwave radio station at all. All I'm getting is just a load of medium wave bleed over. We'll try another station just to make sure. So let's now see if we can find this station once again on the CAID.
Do it properly and do it well, and we're looking forward to that challenge. We wish you well, John. Thanks for joining us. Thank you very much indeed. And we'll do a bit of tennis at the moment. Head off to Australia. Andy Murray won earlier on today.
Now I'm sorry to say, it's actually quite hopeless. You can just about make out a shortwave radio station in the background, but that medium wave bleed over just completely wipes it out. And it's a pity really, because it's quite a nice looking radio. I was really hoping it was going to be able to perform the same as the TECSUN, but for about half the cost. So to conclude here, what you get really with this CAID KK11 is it's a fairly good FM radio, quite a good actual medium wave radio, but unfortunately it's completely useless on shortwave. It is no way is it actually a multi-band receiver at all. So it's a bit of a foul really as an actual shortwave radio. I do have another CAID model actually on its way, a KK9, which is the model below this one. But I'm afraid after this one I'm not actually all that kind of optimistic that that's going to be any better. But anyway, that will be coming soon, so tune back and look out for that video. But for now, as always, I'd like to say thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Bye bye now.